Good afternoon and welcome to Masterpiece Theater. Today's episode is brought to you by The Chronicles of Narnia, and the book is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. How did I do? Very good. Keep going. Well, if you remember, Sister Pat said if you get scared, go get your lovey, or you could do something else, or bring a friend. You know what? I brought a friend. Oh, how nice. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. You know we're a family of friends. But who did you bring today? I brought my friend, who was back here, right? Simba. Hi, Simba. Oh, I wonder why you brought Simba. Because look, Simba, look. No, Simba, don't be scared. Look. Aslan. He's a nice lion, huh? You're gonna like the story, right? You'll like the story. Remember, if you're frightened, you could do something else, okay? Okay. So I think you two should settle down. Maybe I'll put you over here today. Okay? How's that? Now you could be with your friend and you don't have to be frightened. Well, if you remember in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, we were up to chapter 2. And if you remember that sign, remember, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the children were sent to the professor's home in England. And it's this huge house. And they decided to go exploring and to play hide and go seek. Yeah. And Lucy found a room that had a wardrobe. And wardrobe is the closet that has mirrors on the outside. And she went in and there was long fur coats, but it kept going and going and going. And it got colder. And all of a sudden she found herself in a new place. First she saw a light from the lamppost. Remember? She always looked back to make sure that she left the door open in the wardrobe because it would be very silly to lock yourself in the wardrobe. And soon she found a fawn. A man that from the waist up looks like a man, except he's got horns. And if you look down here, he has the feet and the hooves of a goat. He was carrying parcels, also known as packages. And he had an umbrella, hard to see here, and a big tail that he had around his arm. So let's see what's going to happen. What Lucy found there. Good evening, said Lucy. But the fawn was so busy picking up the parcels that at first he did not reply. When he had finished, he made a little bow. Oh, good evening, said the fawn. Excuse me, I don't want to be inquisitive, but I should be thinking you're a daughter of Eve. That means a girl. Well, my name is Lucy, she said, not quite understanding him. But you are, forgive me, what they call a girl, said the fawn. Well, of course I'm a girl, said Lucy. You are in fact a human? Of course I'm human, said Lucy. To be sure, said the fawn. How silly of me, but I've never seen a son of Adam, a boy, or a daughter of Eve before. Oh, I am delighted. That is to say, and then he stopped as if he was going to say something, and he remembers he better not. Delighted, he went on. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Tummus. Oh, I am very pleased to meet you, Mr. Tummus, said Lucy. And may I ask you, oh, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tummus, have you ever come out? Did you ever get into Narnia? Narnia? What's Narnia? Said Lucy. This is the land that we're in right now, said Mr. Tummus. Narnia. Where we are now. all that lies between the lamppost and the great castle of Carparavel on the eastern side. And you have come from the wild woods of the west? Well, I got through the wardrobe in the spare room, said Lucy. Ah, said Mr. Tumnus. If only I had worked harder at geography, said the little fawn. I should remember the countries. But they aren't countries, said Lucy, laughing. It's only way back there. At least, I'm not sure, but it's summer over there. Meanwhile, said Mr. Tumnus, it is winter in Narnia. It has been for ever so long, and we shall both catch a cold, if we stay here in the snow. O daughter of Eve from the far land of Sparome, where eternal summer reigns around the bright city of the wardrobe, would you like to come with me and have a cup of tea? Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Tumnus, she said. But I was wondering that I think I ought to get back to the spare room. Oh, it's just around the corner, said Mr. Tumnus, and there'll be a roaring fire, and we'll have toast and sardines and cake. Well, gee, that's very kind of you, said Lucy, but I won't be able to stay very long. But if you take my arm, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tumnus, I shall be able to hold the umbrella over both of us. And with that, off they went. And so Lucy found herself walking through the wood arm in arm with this strange creature, as if they had known themselves all along, talking. They had gone farther than they before, to the place, and they came where there were rocks all about, and little hills that went up and little hills that went down. And at the bottom of one small valley, Mr. Tumnus turned suddenly aside as if he were walking to a great big rock. And at that moment, Lucy found that they were heading right to the entrance of a cave. And soon they were inside when she found herself blinking from the light of the fire. Then Mr. Tumnus stooped and took a flaming piece of wood out of the fire, and with a pair of tongs, and he lit a lamp. Now we shan't be long, he said, and immediately he put the kettle on. And here they are, walking through the woods of Narnia. Good thing he had that umbrella, because it kept them dry from the snow. Lucy thought she had never been to such a nicer place. It was little, but it was a dry, clean cave. There was a carpet on the floor, and there were 2 chairs. One for me, said Mr. Tumnus, and one for a friend. And a table and a dresser, and a mantelpiece over the fire, and a picture of an old fawn with a gray beard. And in one corner there was a door, which Lucy thought must lead to Mr. Tumnus's bedroom. And on the wall was a shelf full of books. Lucy looked at these things while Mr. Tumnus was setting the tea. They had titles like The Life of and Ways of Men and Monks, and Popular Legends. Oh, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tumnus. And really, it was a wonderful tea that he had set up. There was a nice brown egg lightly boiled for each of them. Then there was sardines on toast, and buttered toast, and toast with honey, and cake that was topped with sugar. And when Lucy was tired of eating, the fawn began to talk. Oh, he had a wonderful way of telling tales in the forest. He told about the midnight dancers and how everyone would come out in the forest and start to dance, and about the long hunting parties and the white stag and the feasting. Oh, it sounded just wonderful. But, he said, we can't do that all the time, now that it's always winter here in Narnia. And he started to be sad. So to cheer himself up, he took out of its case on the dresser a strange little flute. And it looked as if it was made of straw. And he began to play the flute. And the tune he played made Lucy want to laugh and made Lucy want to cry too, and sleep at the same time. and it seemed as if he had been playing for hours and hours. Oh, he was a very good flute player. Oh, yes, he was. Let's find out what happens, okay? Oh, Mr. Thomas, I am so sorry to stop you, but really, I do have to go home, you know. I have to leave in a few minutes. Oh, it's no good now, you know, said the fawn, and putting his flute down. No good, Lucy said, jumping up and feeling a little frightened. What do you mean? I have to go home at once, Mr. Tumnus. The others will be wondering what has happened to me. But in a moment later, he asked, Mr. Tumnus, what is the matter? But Mr. Tumnus was crying. Tears were rolling down his cheeks, and he put his hands against his face. Mr. Tumnus, Lucy said. Oh, don't cry. Are you not feeling well? Dear Mr. Tumnus, do tell me what is wrong. But the fawn continued to cry. Lucy took out her handkerchief and she gave it to him. And he kept wringing it and crying. Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy, please, do stop it at once. Oh, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Why are you crying like that? Oh, said Mr. Tumnus, I'm crying because I'm such a bad fawn. Well, I don't think you're a bad fawn at all, said Lucy. I think you're a very good fawn. You're the nicest fawn I've ever met. Oh, you wouldn't say that if you knew, replied Mr. Tumnus. No, I'm a bad fawn. I don't do what I'm supposed to do, and oh. But what have you done? Said Lucy. Oh, my old father, said Mr. Tumnus, that's the one on the mantelpiece. He told me never to do it, never to do a thing like that. A thing like what? A thing like what? Oh, take you into the service of the White Witch. That's what I've done. Oh. The White Witch? The White Witch? Who is she? Why, she is the one that is in control of all of Narnia. She always makes it winter. It's never Christmas. Think of that. Oh, how awful, Lucy said. But what does she pay you for? I don't understand. Oh, that's the worst of it, said Mr. Tumnus. I'm a kidnapper for her. That's what I am. Look at me, daughter of Eve. I am supposed to take you to the White Witch. What? Oh, no. I'm sure you would never do anything like that. Oh, yes, but I have to. Well, said Lucy, rather slowly, well, that's pretty bad, but I'm sure you're sorry for that, and you'll never do that again. Daughter of Eve, don't you understand, said the fawn. It isn't something that I've done. It's something that I am going to do. What do you mean, said Lucy. You are the girl, the daughter of Eve, that I am supposed to take you to the White Witch. Oh, anytime I see a daughter of Eve or a son of Adam, I have to take them to her. Oh, but you won't, Mr. Tumnus. No, said Lucy. You won't, will you? She said. No, if I don't, he began to cry again. She's sure to find out. And she'll have my tail cut off. And she'll have my ears sawn off. And my beard plucked out. Oh, it will be terrible. Oh, I am very sorry, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. But please let me go. Let me go home now. Oh, of course I will, said the fawn. Of course you have to go. There was no one with you, right? Oh, no. Oh, no, I can't give you over to the White Witch, said Mr. Tumnus. Come with me. We'll go back to the lamppost. I suppose you can find your way back to Sparrow, then? Oh, I'm sure I can, said Lucy. But we must go as quietly as we can, said Mr. Tumnus. The whole wood is full of her spies. Even some of the trees are on her side. And with that, they both left the tea on the table, and Mr. Tumnus once more put his umbrella up, and he gave Lucy his arm, and they went out in the snow. The journey back was not like the journey to the fawn's cave. They went quietly, not speaking a
and Mr. Tumnus kept to the darkest place of the woods. "Oh, do you know your way home from here, daughter of Eve?" said Mr. Tumnus. Lucy looked between the trees, and she could see in the distance the light from the wardrobe. "Yes," she said, I can see the wardrobe door now." "Then you better go home as quick as you can. Go ahead. Forgive me for what I was going to do." "Why, of course I will forgive you," said Lucy, shaking his hand. "And I do hope you don't get into trouble because of me. Farewell. Goodbye, daughter of Eve. Perhaps I may keep your handkerchief?" "Oh, of course you can," said Lucy. And she went on crunching through the snow, back to the wardrobe. She got inside and she jumped out and she said, "Here I am. I'm here. I'm back. I'm all right." Open up your memory banks. Chapter 3, Edmund and the Wardrobe. Chapter 3. Here's a sneak preview. Edmund and the Wardrobe. Try to remember for next time. And this is my brief but spectacular